Every place and every people have a history. Here along the coast of Maine, the land was inhabited for generations by native peoples, the Wabanaki and Etchemin, whose way of life was drastically changed by European contact beginning in the 15th and 16th centuries. Inspired by the promise of abundant resources, the lure of trade, and the commercial appeal of fishing, these strangers from across the ocean began to be seen more frequently as they explored the coves and inlets of a very new world. Among the most famous was Captain John Smith of Pocahontas fame. In April 1614, he made his only voyage to this part of a new continent, landed at Monhegan Island, then sailed south, arriving back in England in October of the same year. Perhaps his most important legacy were the maps he drew, which proved to be a spur for further exploration and settlement. By approximately 1616, a seasonal fishing station had been established at Pemaquid, where cod was caught, salted, and sent to market, and trading occurred between native peoples and the English. Over time, the floodgates of immigration began to open. Between 1625 and 28, a year-round village had been created. By 1665, Colonial Pemaquid had some 30 houses and a population of approximately 200 people. Life so far from home had its challenges for the newcomers, not least of which was the impact of 3 attacks on the village. The first in 1676, the result of King Philip's War, and 2 attacks in 1689 and 1696, the military impact of King William's War. A partial reconstruction of Fort William Henry symbolizes those conflicts. Colonial Pemaquid had become the northernmost area of English influence in the 17th century and embodied the harsh difficulty of surviving on the eastern frontier. There's a great deal of history at this site, established at nearly the same time as Plymouth Plantation. Much of it rich and varied, some of it yet to be learned. Lest we forget, 2/3 of the word history is the word story. But how best to tell the story of Colonial Pemaquid? Since 1993, the Friends of Colonial Pemaquid, a non-profit organization working with the local community and the state of Maine, has helped the site fulfill its mission of education and preservation. In 1999, the Friends launched a campaign to restore and update the Fort House, an effort that raised $245,000 and resulted in marked improvements. Since then, we've sponsored exhibits, archaeological digs, scheduled special events, including lantern walks and a lecture series, as well as conducting interpretive demonstrations. But there's still more to do, more potential to be achieved. For instance, the cellar holes at the Colonial Pemaquid site are all that's left of what was at one time a thriving 17th century English village. Together with the signage which outlines what is believed to have been the purpose of the buildings, which at one time stood on these foundations, the rock-filled holes in the ground bear silent witness to the past and spur the imagination of the thousands of visitors who come here each year. But no matter how vivid the imagination, it is not easy to conjure up a vision of what colonial life was really like. Plymouth Plantation, settled in the same time period, had the same problem. How do you present an accurate picture of the past when the buildings where people lived are long gone? Plymouth's approach was to recreate a portion of the village, and that is now our goal as well. Proposed by Tom Desjardins, a historian with the Bureau of Parks and Lands, a 17th century reproduction village based on original foundations and dimensions has already begun, with the first structure started in 2010 as a learning project. This 12 by 16 dwelling represents the earliest European structures built at Pemaquid in the first few years of the 1600s. Primitive dwellings like this housed English fishermen through the cold months of January and February when codfish came close to shore. Thanks to Tom and to Bobby Ives and Bill Grogan of the Carpenter's Boat Shop, as well as local craftsmen and volunteers from AmeriCorps and the local community, the building soon took shape. After the post and beam frame was complete, wattle and daub was added, a process that refers to a building technique that has been in use for over 1,000 years. It is a system of filling in the walls of the framework of a house, usually wood, with a mixture of mud, sand, crushed rock, lime, chopped straw, and any similar material which may be available locally. This mixture, the daub as it's called, is thoroughly blended and plastered onto a mesh framework of vertical and horizontal strips of wood or saplings, again, using whatever is available. This is called the wattle. The Colonial Pemaquid wattle and daub house has clapboard outer walls, with the walls inside being daubed, both typical construction methods of the period. There are examples of this ancient wattle and daub approach all over the world. In Europe, for example, many such homes still in use are hundreds of years old. And in Egypt, not only are there illustrations of slaves using this process 5,000 years ago, even today, comfortable wattle and daub homes are still being built. Daubing the interior of the building at Colonial Pemaquid has also been an ongoing process that was considerably enhanced by the involvement of a local Girl Scout troop, who combined fun with learning about the past. The Wattle and Daub House also has become a center of activity because of the presence of the interns who lead tours inside the structure and demonstrate activities nearby, including cooking over an open fire. The presence of knowledgeable, personable individuals attired in period dress created a whole new dimension of positive experience for visitors of all ages. Until last year, the Wattle and Daub House at Colonial Pemaquid had a temporary cover of sailcloth which was probably authentic, but which soon began to rot and leak. A thatched roof was planned as a permanent replacement. Thatchers in the 21st century, however, are few and far between. Ultimately, with the Friends sharing the cost with the state, and under the direction of Gary Best, Assistant Regional Manager for the Bureau of Parks and Lands, Colin McGee, a craftsman originally from England, was engaged to do the work. At a very young age, Colin decided he wanted to be a thatcher and undertook a 5-year apprenticeship to achieve his goal. McGee is now a Master Thatcher, a title that denotes not only training and experience, but also serves as a reminder of the serious approach and artistic skill that goes into a learned trade. In 1991, McGee took on a project in the United States and has worked here ever since, thatching roofs from private residences and businesses throughout the country to historic structures at Jamestown, Virginia, and other locations. But what is thatch anyway? Thatch can be defined as any vegetation used to roof a structure. The vegetation is gathered, bundled, and secured to a framework on top of a building. Thatch functions both as a shingle and underlayment. Very rarely is there anything beyond simple framework between the thatch and the inside of the structure. For that reason, thatchers have to understand the qualities of the thatching material they use, its value as insulation, and particularly its ability to withstand snow, wind, and rain. The two most common types of European and American thatch are straw and reed. Both are tried and true choices, and each brings slight different qualities to a completed roof. They are not, however, the only material suitable for thatching. Nothing says old in a building more than a thatched roof, here at Colonial Pemaquid as well as at Plymouth Plantation. It's not only authentic, it's also extremely practical. Because thatch has thousands of pockets of air between and within the stems of the vegetation, it is an effective insulator. These air pockets give the roof the ability to insulate a building in both warm and cold weather. Norfolk reed, which is commonly used to thatch roofs in the United States and Britain, offers an insulation value equal to modern fiberglass. A thatched roof will last approximately 70 years and is relatively easy to repair. A fresh layer of thatch can be applied directly on top of the original layer. The result can be an old and very thick layer of thatch. Although new thatch is usually 12 inches thick, up to 4 feet of material can accumulate on old roofs. Unless the original roof was destroyed by fire, the bottom layer of thatch is as old as the structure itself. Surprisingly, perhaps, thatched roofs keep out water and are resistant to fire. They keep a building's interior relatively dry because of the steep pitch of a thatched roof, which is 45 degrees, and because reed is a hollow, waxy organic material that is applied in a cubic foot throughout the roof. All these elements work together to provide a roof that is watertight. And the reed is applied so densely and tightly that a thatched roof is more than likely to smolder than burn, although, like any roof, if the house itself is burned, the thatched roof will burn as well. The vision of a recreated village at Colonial Pemaquid promises a whole new dimension to the story of early settlement, providing a greater appreciation and understanding of a long-distant era. It's a place and a people whose history is one of sacrifice, conflict, endurance, and ultimately survival.